Hello and welcome to all of you for this subsequent session which we are having in our Divine Plunge. I hope all of you are staying safe and healthy. Uh, and I welcome all of you for this journey which we have started together uh, in this series of Divine Plunge. We are covering 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, and we have covered 6 chapters so far. Um what we have tried doing is in this whole scenario. Yeah, so what we have done so far is we started with the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which was the doubt, which is about Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra, and Arjuna having their own doubts, and eventually Arjuna, deciding not to fight in confusion. Uh, he thought it's better not to engage in fighting since there is a lot of pain in killing one's own relatives and all. So seeing that kind of trouble in executing his duty was something which led him to take a decision of not fighting. And the the second one, of course, was the second chapter wherein he admits that he cannot fight, and he what he also does is he he sort of surrenders to the spiritual teacher. So the second chapter was Gita, where G stands for Guru or spiritual teacher, and he surrendered to the spiritual teacher for getting the solution in confusion. So he wanted to solve the problem not from superficial perspective, but he wanted to solve it for once and all. That's a sign of intelligence. Um, Unintelligent people they want to live the life from event to event. Okay, somehow or other there is some problem. Let me overcome this problem. Let me just somehow settle this thing, and I'll move to next one. So unintelligent, a sign of unintelligence is that no, we approach our life on a day-to-day basis, on an event-to-event basis. And as long as the event is fine, everything is fine. Event turns bad, then just rectify that event, move on. So if there is some issue with in relationship with somebody, um, we just sort of, I mean, it's fine. I mean, it is something which is just say address superficially and move on, because there is so much pain in having strained relationships. So instead of solving it from the root cause, what one tries to do is that no, just address it overall and just move on in life. um, but intelligence means one doesn't look at the superficial event. Intelligence means one looks beyond the obvious event. One tries to see that why something is happening. Like, let's say simple example is that of pollution. So one way to look at the increasing pollution is that no, we say that no, oh, the pollution is high because people are not using BS6 vehicles, which is not wrong to some extent. But what is not essentially like no, the next level could be that no, where we talk about the kind of imbalance between the density of population in cities and in the rural areas, where the cities are overcrowded and the rural areas are practically people moving out, and they are sort of left with nothing in terms of manpower. So there are certain cities which are clocking the air quality index of 800, 900, which is highly hazardous to health. And there are some villages where the car is also not there. So someone may come to that level of conclusion. The third level of conclusion can be about a little better one, could be about the lifestyle of the people. That how, I mean, even if you're talking of this migration which has happened from villages to cities, city becoming overcrowded, essentially it is driven by a uh, by a desire to live a certain kind of lifestyle, which is which is like no, which may not be natural to us, but it is something which sort of drives us, where there is some sort of immediate pleasure in there. So that could be another thing, and no, people would want to change their lifestyle, and then they would eventually feel that city is not the best place to live in, and so on and so forth. The Even if one goes deeper into it, one will realize that no, the pollution outside is because of pollution inside. So whether it is city or village doesn't matter actually. So if there is a pollution inside our heart and our mind, we discussed about that pollution yesterday also. Those anarthas which are there of lust, anger, greed, uh, and lust, anger, greed, and pride, and illusion, hypocrisy. So that kind of pollution inside will always lead to pollution outside. Okay. So best way to curb pollution is that no, curb the pollution inside, and then the curb pollution outside is automatically curbed. So these are different approaches to look at the same problem, downright obvious to going deeper. So Arjun was that level of student. He didn't use believed in living life event to event. He believed in solving the problems of life, and that's what is called the real meaning of Aryan is one who thinks higher, one who doesn't think lower. So it's not some sort of casteism kind of word or something like that. It's more about the level of thinking. So so we see that no, Arjun no, was believed in thinking higher. He was not a person who can be satiated with an answer which is very obvious and very basic and things like that. He cannot get satiated by that. So he needs something higher in life. So that is what which that is what is going to be uh, you know, deciding factor of what level Krishna is going to speak. Because Arjun had that level of intelligence, Krishna also then starts answering questions which are more not just superficial but inside, and therefore he starts from the most uh, sacred point of our existence itself. That was second chapter completely. And then slowly, of course, he'll bring it to the practical problem which he's facing. But in the system of spirituality, important thing is not what is to be done. Important thing is why and how it is being done. So if the why and how is not okay, I mean the current emphasis which you see the currently, it's all about what you do. If no matter how you do it or why you did it, that doesn't matter as long as you have outcomes. But in spirituality, and that's a very shallow approach because outcomes eventually will stop coming beyond a point of time. Of course, with slave kind of setup, it will continue coming. Even if somebody doesn't want to do it, one has to do it. But in general, the quality outcomes will always not be there unless one focuses on why and how of it. So in Vedic system, in spirituality, the emphasis was always on why and how of things. Therefore, Krishna is not focusing on what you should be doing. He is saying that why you should be doing something and how you should be doing something. This is a very important instruction for us also while we are dealing with our kids, maybe we are bringing them up. It's very important and it's very easy to say in a pressurized way to our kids, do this. But important is to inculcate their intelligence to the level where we give inputs in terms of why and how it has to be done rather than what is to be done. Okay, so that's how that's sustainability. So that is, and spirituality means sustainability. That's what spirituality means. In true sense, it means sustainability, because spirituality means soul, and soul is the only sustainable thing in our existence, right? So we are soul, and the body keeps on changing. So we cannot expect sustainability on the platform of body, because body keeps changing, mind keeps changing, but the soul remains the same. So in this way, uh, the inputs are given by Lord uh, on the identity continues, and then Lord starts explaining uh, about the point that no, spirituality doesn't mean inactivity. So while we are explaining anything, it's always better to explain what it is and what it is not. Let's say if I have to explain red color to the child, I'll show him red color and tell him this is red color, and I'll show him a yellow color and saying that no, this is not red color. I'll show him blue, this is not red, this is not red, this is red. So then it becomes a well-rounded information and intelligence, right? Similarly, spirituality is about soul, is about God, is about our true existence. But it doesn't mean that it is inactivity. Because as soon as we think, oh, I'm soul, I'm acting 24 hours on the platform of body. I'm working out, I'm taking care of my kids, I'm married, I am studying. So we're doing so many things in our life. None of it is actually directly related to soul. So what should I do? Inactivity? That's not what Krishna says. Krishna says that no, inactivity is not the principle of it. Soul can never be inactive, but the activities which soul is doing can be dovetailed in the service of Krishna. That is spirituality. So how to dovetail? Then we need knowledge, and we came to third chapter, fourth chapter of knowledge, and then we came to the chapter again, know how to act in knowledge. Okay, so that's where the whole concept of Nishkam Karma Yoga came in. So in this way, what we see is that no, Bhagavad Gita is progressively sort of going. But even though one is having knowledge, one knows one has to do activity. There is one factor which we discussed yesterday, which keeps stopping us, keeps challenging us in achieving our goals, and then that is mind. Mind can paint a otherwise rosy picture as something very very bad, depressing, and mind can paint otherwise depressing picture as something very rosy. Okay, so it depends on what is the nature of one's mind. And what we saw yesterday was that how this mind, if it is being used to uplift oneself, okay, just like I take a step and I move up, so that same mind becomes the friend. But if I use mind to degrade myself, to engage in the activities of degradation, then that same mind becomes enemy. Uh, so mind per se is neutral, but when the mind is engaged in the nefarious activities, then mind becomes nefarious, and then it will prompt us to do nefarious activities again, and then we'll become all the more nefarious. Then that's a trap we get into. Okay. Whereas if the mind is being used to deliver oneself to the higher plane of life, which is spiritual plane, and that's why mind is given to us, then it becomes a friend. It becomes easy to handle mind. That's why we see that no, the cases of depression, of what we see, suicide, is when the mind is actually it becomes too absorbed, and it is not sufficiently absorbed in the activity of uplifting oneself in spiritual life. Then it becomes automatically very very difficult to control our mind, which keeps on going on. So it's like this, if you throw something in the water which is coming down the hill, it is impossible that no we can stop it, right? So the nature of this world is everything is coming down. Okay, so the standard of people is coming down, standard of thinking is coming down, everything sort of comes down. So similarly mind is also coming down, but if we pick up the mind and use it in the service of Lord, then it can easily go up the river, up the stream, and effortlessly. Just like, if definitely river stream is very, very, massive, but there's a very powerful motorboat on which one is going upstream. It is possible. Okay, so it is very, very powerful motor will, fuel the energy with which the person can go upstream. So in this way, we see that no, mind is the source of liberation, and mind is the source of liberation from our all the pain and all miseries. But the same mind can be the cause of our miseries in first place. So that is the nature of mind, which is being elaborately described in sixth chapter. And then Krishna explains the Ashtanga Yoga, which is well known for controlling mind. So the it starts with pranayam. There are 8 siddhis also which are being given in the scriptures. Anima, Laghima, like that. There are 8 siddhis, uh, where one can become lighter than the feather of the bird, where one can become heavier than the heaviest. Even now, if we go to Kumbh Mela, we'll find people who take dip in particular river, and then they come up in 450 kilometers down in some other river. So they can actually, they have conquered their, or they have not conquered exactly, but then they have controlled their mind by the strict practice of celibacy, by strict practice of being in an isolated place. They have been able to connect with their mind so well, they are able to harness the power of mind. But the percentage of such people is extremely few, and Krishna has come not to give mystic powers to each one of us. Krishna has come uh, to give us the ultimate happiness of uh, which the soul is seeking. The soul is seeking the happiness of being connected to Him, connected to Lord. So that's why Krishna has come in. So therefore, what we see is that no, uh, Arjun, when he hears Ashtanga Yoga description from Krishna, he says, "Boss, I'm in battlefield. On one hand, you are saying fight, and then you are saying Ashtanga Yoga, and by this you will be able to control mind." Seems so contradictory. It's so difficult. It's not practical for me. That's what Arjuna says, and Krishna says absolutely. So I just explained you what is there in the platter. So it's up to you to choose or not. So it's a fact that it's not practical to practice Ashtanga yoga in this age for the purpose of achieving supreme. Yes, one may get some health benefits. That is fine. There's no doubt about it. Because it is Vedic. It's not that it is becoming some invention or research or something. It's Vedic. It is given in the scriptures. There are certain Patanjali scriptures which are there, and Patanjali sutras. There are certain Upanishads which talk about this. So they definitely can lead us to a good health, but uh, to really practice and achieve super soul, uh, one has to practice it in isolation and free from all distraction, giving up all the duties. Not that you are sitting and you are thinking of when I'm going to, no, probably meet my friend next. What is the next movie I can see? All those thoughts we can't practice Ashtanga yoga. Very difficult. So then Arjuna says it is impractical, and therefore Krishna says yes, there is more. Now this was more like you catch the ear, but it's like, like this. No, you get trying to catch, and supposedly even bigger. No, you just sort of put one pillow also here, and then you are trying to. But then there is an easier way of catching the ear also, and that is what is called as bhakti yoga, where one can continue to be wherever the person is, uh, continuing to be as a student, continuing to be as a professor, continuing to be as a worker, continuing to be as a businessman, continuing to be as whatever profession one is in, whatever situation one is in. But all Krishna says in that last verse is just think of me in whatever you are doing, and just render loving service to me. That's it. And if one is always thinking of me, then one is sure to come to me. There is no doubt about it. There's nothing to be fearful about. There's no doubt about it. Uh, One can very, very easily come to me. So, and of that, he told that no, that person who always thinks of me is the topmost yogi. He's the topmost yogi, such a person who is always thinking about me. So, with this, we finish the sixth chapter, and today we are coming to the session 7, and we will, and this, as I discussed yesterday, Bhagavad Gita is like a sandwich, and there are, like, no, there is the core of the masala of the sandwich is what starts now. Okay, which is, no, Krishna is going to directly talk of, so far which he was not doing, he was talking that karma or jnana, or now he will start directly talking uh, about bhakti. It is Bhagavad Gita. It is about Bhagwan, Bhakta, and relationship between them. That is Bhagavad Gita. So, song of God. So we sing songs only about things which we are very dear about. We something which are very dear to us. We sing songs about them. Sometimes somebody is very dear to us. We'll create a song for that person. So Krishna has created this song. This song of God is for his devotee, to make all of us his devotee. That is why this song is being sung, so that it can attract all of us, and uh, we can very nicely accept Krishna as God, and become very happy in enjoying the happiness which he has come to give us through his devotional service. So that's what Bhagavad Gita is. So now he will start talking directly on those aspects, as we see. So I'll quickly share my screen. For here we go for the session 7, and this session is called Head. Okay, just like we have abbreviations for all our sessions. So this session is called Head. It is the king of knowledge. This chapter is that knowledge of absolute. So it's like head, uh, the 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 topmost kind of knowledge will get revealed from here on. So what Krishna talks in 7th chapter is, till 6th chapter, what he says is that no, so baaton ki ek baat, that I am the supreme, and if you just think of me and do all your activities in my uh, knowledge, in my consciousness, thinking about me and doing it as a service to me, then it is uh, you come back to me very easily. It's a very easy thing. In this chapter, Krishna is going to explain that how one can think about him. So in 6th chapter, what he says is, think about me and you will get all the perfection. So how many of us probably, we all want that kind of path where we essentially don't have to leave our essentials, but we also want to gain the complete benefit of spirituality of 24 hours and 7 days a week and 365 days a year. So we all want that. So that, what Krishna says is, the key is, think about me. Whatever you are doing, you think about me. Just like we discussed the example yesterday, we talk about that, how we are working in an office, we think about our kids, we think about so many other aspects of life while we are doing something else. So similarly, we need to think about Krishna. We need to think about Krishna and whatever we are doing. So one will think that, no, okay, if I am doing something for my family, how can I think of Krishna? I am thinking about my child, I am thinking about my wife. Yes. So if we please, by pleasing them, by keeping them happy, I am making Krishna happy. So they are the pleasing them is a means to make Krishna happy. That is how we can think of Krishna. Okay. So one of the examples, and we have some tips also coming in towards the end. So so therefore this chapter talks about how to think about Krishna, how to think uh, about Krishna and whatever we are doing. Because naturally we don't have currently love for God. None of us have, right? Probably. I mean, some may be having, some may have little, some may have more. Maybe faith is also a problem. So while one has to, just like if you go to an experiment in a chemistry lab and H2 plus O2 is H2O, and we start doing that experiment, that pungent gas and all those things, and dry test tube, and whoosh, and there is like no, the hydrogen, this thing is there, and then the air is having oxygen, and then suddenly water is being seen, uh, in the side, or the areas of the test tube. So we have to follow certain diligently, not naturally. Probably for us it will not come naturally, probably for the lab assistant or a chemistry teacher it will come very naturally, but since we are not experienced, so it's not and unless we don't follow the rules also, then also it's difficult. So in order to get quick results, in order to get better results, in order to become, see the realization quicker and quicker, we have to think of him, though we don't have so much love for him that we can think about him. I mean, nobody is going to, it's very easy to think about our mother, our father, our brother, or because there is love. But what about Lord? There is no love, then how to think about him? So there are certain things which we can think, which intellectually, so something which is not coming naturally has to be accepted through intelligence, and then slowly when we apply it becomes natural. That is a way. Something which is not coming naturally, using intelligence we accept it and then apply it, and then slowly it becomes natural. So similarly we hear, in this chapter, the how of thinking, and then we hear it. It's not natural, but we apply those methods, and when we apply it becomes natural, and then it's easier for us to think of Krishna and other activities, related activities. So there is a bit of initial kick we need to give, and once the engine is started, then I mean, awesome, then it's not going to stop. Okay. So the this chapter is called as head, and the H stands for hearing. So before we even talk of how to do it, the first how of how is that when we are saying thinking of Krishna, not in some my own way of thinking about Krishna, and thinking about, mm, Krishna from my mind and all those things, and no, or having some sentimental way of doing it. Thinking about Krishna starts with hearing from scriptures. When we hear about Krishna, when we hear from Krishna in this Bhagavad Gita, when we hear about Krishna from his devotees, that is called right hearing. That hearing will produce right thoughts. If the input is good, output is going to be good. If the input is bad, the output is going to be bad. So when we hear from Krishna or from the devotees of Krishna, then it becomes easier for us to think right. Okay. So the first aspect of hearing, which is first 1, 2, 3 verses, is emphasis Krishna gives on hearing properly from proper source. Hey, I know that I have to think of Krishna. That's it. Okay, fine. I'll do. So I'll create some own way and all. No, that also Krishna is giving, that one has to hear through scriptures. So one has to see God from ears. One cannot see God from eyes initially, but one has to see God from ears. Then when one sees God from ears, when that a person applies that knowledge, then one feels the existence of God very, very clearly in one's life. Okay. And then when we go on advancing, then from all our senses, why just eyes? From all our senses, we can perceive the presence of Lord. Okay. But first point is hearing. We don't hear. Uh, if we think, um, like no subject matter of God, we can think about it and speculate. I mean, in India, if you really see, anybody can talk about God. Anybody is ready to talk about God. Everybody has an opinion on God. We had movies also which came in which gave their opinions on God. But God is not. I mean, if two frogs, they are in the well and they start giving opinion about the Pacific Ocean, like no, oh, this is how Pacific Ocean is. I feel it is bigger than this well. No. You know what? I feel it should be slightly bigger than this well, not too big. So I mean, so what is the limit, that frog can actually go to? There's no limit. One has to actually hear from somebody outside of the well who is seeing Pacific Ocean to explain that your well in Pacific Ocean has no comparison also. It's not even a dot in the page. That is the comparison. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to God, we cannot be casual in our approach in understanding God. Okay, we have to, first thing is regularly hearing from scriptures. Therefore, I kept on saying, I also brought this book now, this Bhagavad Gita as it is, which we are referring to, uh, which all of you should, uh, buy a copy, and we have already shared uh, the the soft copy of this in our group. So please have a look at it. Okay, so we have to hear from scriptures. When we hear from scriptures, hear from proper sources, then that is absolutely perfect. Then there's nothing. Just like, I mean, if there is a child and he sees tube light for the first time, no, an LED bulb, and he doesn't know what it is, and then he asks his father, and father says that no, LED bulb. Oh, LED, LED, LED. Now, child may be imperfect to understand what is LED, but since he has heard from father, who is authority, it works. His knowledge is perfect. Similarly, when we hear from our father, which is Lord Himself, and from mother, which is scriptures, then it is very easy for us to understand. Though we may be imperfect, but then our knowledge becomes perfect. Okay. So the first point is that on hearing, and Krishna says that how one has to hear: regularly, attentively, submissively. Regularly, attentively, submissively. Nothing very serious. I mean, the same principles we apply, at least try to apply in classrooms also, right? One has to regularly attend classrooms. One has to be attentive while one is sitting in class. And one has to be submissive also. Let's say I'm sitting in class because of the attendance pressure. But in my heart, I feel that this person who is teaching me is a big fool actually. He doesn't understand anything. Look at his hair, look at his this, look at his that. So even though I'm regular, I may be attentive apparently, but because I'm not submissive, that attention will not stay for long and I'll become distracted. Okay. So in that sense, uh, one has to be very, very clear in terms of uh, the source of hearing, which is Krishna himself. Now, when Krishna talks about the principle of hearing from a proper source regularly, attentively, submissively, he starts explaining something about himself. Okay, let's say if I have to understand what is Bill Gates. So it's not that Lord is so proud that no, he's talking about this, no, I am this, I am that. There's no other way to understand Lord. If I have to explain about myself, I have to give my introduction, like, no, this is what I am. This doesn't mean that I'm bragging about myself. This only means that there is no better way to learn unless I talk about it. So Krishna also talks about it, that how he's actually everywhere. That is what he means. And what he starts off with is, in fact, before telling Arjun, he says that no, what I'm going to talk now is there's nothing beyond this to be known. Okay. Everything is covered in this, which is a fact. Because what after that you can go deeper into these aspects probably, but there's nothing breadth in terms of breadth left. There's nothing beyond it. Yes, one can go deeper. That's fine. So what Krishna says is that, and we will come to the key verses actually. This is what he says. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kham mano buddhir evacha ahankara iti amme bhinna prakriti rashtita. What it clearly says is the 8 elements which you see, of which your body is made, this whole world is made, the Ashtadhatu, they all together, hmm, they constitute my separated bhinna prakriti ashtadha. It is my separated energy. Okay, just like, I mean, uh, one it's like this, no, that one sweats. Okay, so the sweat comes out and then sweat is being taken off. No, sweat is a separated energy. You don't run after the sweat, right? Okay, so that sweat is actually a separated energy. It's your energy, but it's separated from your body, like once you do like this. Similarly, this material energy, or these 8 elements what we talk of Ashtadhatu, they are as separated material energies. Okay. Uh, and so this is the first no, the point that no, that whatever we see in this world ultimately is combination of these 8 elements, right? Even our bodies is made up of these 5 elements, the gross body, what we see each other, no, earth, water, air, fire, ether. Okay. And uh, if we see the bodies which are there in water, there the water content is more. If we see the bodies which are there in hot atmosphere, the fire content is more. We see the bodies which are in plane, the earth content is more. Okay. uh, some people say that on sun there is no life, but just like in water there is life on sun also. Only thing is that the body is different. It's not, the life is not there for us. If we go with this body, we can't stay there. Just like with this body, if I go to, just like with the no, with my, if I don't have visa, I can't go to US, right? Similarly, this body is also like a visa for different, it's a visa for a particular place only. It can't go beyond that, right? Similarly, the sun also have living beings, like we have living beings on earth. Only thing is that their body content is having more fire. Then there are living entities even in the air. Their bodily content is having more air. What we are seeing each other, the bodily content is more earthly, more of earth and more of water probably. But if we go down into the water planets and all, in the different water bodies, we'll find bodies which are more water, okay, less of earth. So this combination is there, and all what we are seeing around us, whether the bodies or the things around us, they're just the combination of these 5. Okay. And what is this mind, intelligence, and false ego? False ego? Mana, buddhi, rahankar. So this is again something which is there within us. Just like we wear our, a shirt, and then we wear a coat. So the gross body which we are seeing is, the coat is actually earth, water, fire, air, ether, made up of these 5 elements. And the shirt within, that is made up of, uh, the that is like subtle body. So there is one gross body, sthul sharira, and then there is a subtle body which is called sukshma sharira. So we have sthul sharir, and within that there is sukshma sharir, and sukshma sharir is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Okay. So within this subtle body, which is residing within the heart, okay, um, that is where within that actually enwrapped is, just like we are wearing shirt and coat, and coat, then there comes shirt, and within shirt then there's our body. Similarly, soul is within the subtle body, and the subtle body is then further engaged in the gross body. So that's the constitution of this body, and world around us is also. But point is, it is all Krishna's separated material energy. Okay. But besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, aparayam itastva anyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharite jagat. What he says is very interesting thing. He says that apart from this separated material energy and an inferior energy, right? It's an inferior energy. We can manipulate matter, right? Therefore, soul is actually superior to matter. Spiritual is superior to matter. So what he's saying is there is a superior energy of mind, which is spiritual energy. We saw material energy, there is spiritual energy. And the living entities like soul, all of us, we belong to this superior energy. It's very important. We all belong to the superior energy of Lord. We don't belong to the inferior energy of the Lord. Okay. But why we still identify with this material energy? Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharete Jagat, which comprise living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Yes, material energy is inferior, but if we don't use it properly, then we become subservient to this material energy, which otherwise is supposed to serve us. We become subservient to this material energy. If we are interested to exploit the resources of this energy, of this nature, then we will face the fury of this nature. Then actually this inferior nature, though it is inferior, will trap us. Okay. So what is Krishna saying is we should remember as soul, we belong to superior energy. We belong to superior energy, and we should always remain under shelter of superior energy. How? By engaging whatever material energy we have with us in the service of one who owns it, that is Krishna himself. So now let's say this body is there. How we can use this body for the service of Lord? The first sense which has to be used for the service of Lord is tongue. It is called Sevan Mukhehi Jivadhav. The service begins with tongue. Of course, it begins with ear. When we hear about Lord, this is also a service to Lord only. When we submissively hear about Lord, uh, then that is also a service. And after hearing, when we talk about Lord to others, that is also a service. Of course, there is one more service we can do from tongue. In fact, there are two services we can do from tongue. One is the tongue is used to eat, taste. So we need to, um, whatever food we are getting, we have already learned is all coming from Lord. So we can offer it to God and taste it. So in that ways, we are engaging our tongue in the service of Lord by tasting things which are offered to the Lord. Okay. And the second function of tongue is to talking. So talking about Lord and then chanting the names of the Lord. Okay. Chanting the names of the Lord is a process which is being recommended in all the scriptures. Bible says, hallowed be thy name. If you go to Guru Granth Sahib, it talks of very uh, openly talks about chanting the name of the Lord. Okay. Naam Simran. Then whether we are talking of any religion, even Islam or whatever other religion, everybody talks of remembering Lord by chanting their names. So there is no religion which is saying that no, which is recommending any other method. Every religion talks of chanting the names of the Lord. Okay. What happens by chanting? Let's say if I'm thirsty and if I chant water, 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 will my thirst be satisfied? No. Why? Because water name and water actually, these are two different things. Because it is material. Okay. The spiritual means the name and form, they are identical. Material means name is different, form is different. If I have to actually remove my thirst, I have to actually drink water. I can't otherwise satisfy my thirst. Similarly, but when we chant the names of God, which is spiritual, no, if spiritual energy is coming from him, we are coming from him, he must be spiritual, right? So when we chant his name, there is no nothing different than his name. Like no, his name and he himself, there's no difference. It's absolutely same. So when we chant the holy names of God, then what happens is we are engaging our tongue in the service of God. Okay. So in this way, when we engage our tongue, slowly, all our other senses will be getting engaged. That is the formula. And then Krishna says that this material energy comes from me, spiritual energy comes from me, and matta paratram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam prottam shutre mani ganaga. What Krishna says is that no, everything is actually resting upon me, and there is no truth superior to me. And everything is resting upon me, just like the pearls of a necklace, it rests upon the thread. Can we see thread? No. Can we deny the existence of thread? Not at all. Who is asking sun to rise? Is any one of us? Is any one of our scientist friend? Anybody from NASA? Anybody from ISRO? Anybody from any space or any big politician? Is anyone dictating sun to rise at a particular time? Or is anybody saying, no, now you should set? It is all happening under the direction of God. And we think it is so common, it happens daily. So it's taken for granted. But actually, it's not taken for granted. It is something which is happening under proper direction of Lord Himself. So therefore, Lord says, everything is resting upon me. The whole, everything is upon me. Just as the pearls are strung on thread. In fact, long time back, there used to be a picture of God was being created. Of course, some like made in I think US or somewhere. Where God is actually sitting on one of the knees, and He's holding the whole world on his head, or and he's putting a lot of effort. And he's old, because God has to be old, right? Because he's there since time immemorial, so he has to be old, so holding his world like that. So theoretically, yes, but actually God doesn't have to be so laboriously holding this world. It's very easy. We understand that how actually Krishna is creating these different universes, how they are resting upon him. Okay, so that's how it is. But if one exploits the material nature, then what happens is Tribir Gunamair Bhavair Ebhi Sarvam Idam Jagat Mohitam Nabijanti Mam Ebhya Paramavya. If one engages in exploiting the material nature, then one will always remain confused about the existence of God. Why? Because I am doing something which this which is not ordained by God. No, I'm exploiting the nature for my pleasure, which is not ordained by God. So then it is uh, we have to become deluded, and we can no we need to forget God to do that better, right? So therefore, there are three modes of nature in that material nature, which will keep us busy, keep us confused. These three modes are called goodness, tribhir guna mair, goodness, passion, and ignorance. They will keep us thoroughly confused in life about ourselves, about God, about everything else. Okay. Why? Because we want to exploit nature. The moment we think that no, this nature is actually in Krishna's energy, I am a superior energy, I have power to change this material, but then let me use it for his service, then immediately one is being freed from the modes of nature. So it's like this: no, somebody is there, he has done a crime in a city, immediately police is there, and no, they will give danda and they'll take him to jail, and then one will, based on the degree of one's crime, one will be given the cell in the jail. So somebody is given a very good cell. Okay, somebody is given a cell with a bed, somebody is given a cell with a uh, without bed, somebody is given a cell which is there's no light, only there's no light which that person sees for whole life. So similarly, based on our degree of exploitation, the gross nature of our exploitation, we get different cells. Just like that person who breaks the laws of the government, and then he's being given awarded based on the crime. Similarly, based on one's intensity to enjoy thoroughly this world without godlessness, one is being put in that kind of cell. So somebody is like literally very strong, then he is like bound by ignorance. Somebody is little okay, passion. Somebody is there, but he's like no, not very uh, inclined and is busy. Then he's like goodness. Okay, but the cell remains the same. No, it's not that the somebody gives us an offer that okay, hey, you can actually go into jail and we'll give you a good cell which will have a fan and a bed, and probably even we can arrange for a TV, but we will not have probably a lot of channels maybe, and you'll have a fridge, and but it's a jail. So how many of us is going to agree? Okay, nobody of us, right? Ultimately, it's jail. Ultimately, it's foundation. So similarly, goodness, passion, or ignorance, these are all the modes of nature which binds us. Okay. So what we need to do is Devi Hyasha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Taranti. That one has to surrender unto the God. What is that surrender? I surrender unto you as your servant, and I engage myself and whatever is there in my control, like my body, like we discussed about chanting, in your service. Then, although this energy of Krishna is very difficult to overcome, consisting of these three modes, but since we have surrendered, just like if you go to someone's house and there is a very big dog which comes pouncing upon, running towards me. You entered a house and and as we are almost midway, a big dog starts approaching and ready to bite us and tear us apart and comes pouncing upon us. So what we need to do, we need to shout out for the owner, and the owner, we shout out for the owner, hey, save me, and then that owner says, hey, Rocky. Immediately the dog stops and is fine. I mean, we are safe. Similarly, that's how material nature is actually in control of God. But if we try to mingle with, mess up with it, then we can't help it. We'll be ruined. Okay. But if we approach the owner of the material nature, then we can very easily over. What is the loss in getting diluted by the modes of nature? There is a loss. The loss is one will always remain engaged in the action and reactions of one's activities, bad, good, very strict, very strict. Just like who likes to be in a jail, and it's like not that, oh, give me an excuse this time, maybe I'm not feeling good. Immediate whip, immediate whip, immediate whip. You do something wrong, immediate whip. So similarly, we don't want to be in this kind of setup, right? Wherein we are getting beaten down every now and then. So we want to be in a setup where we are being protected by the Lord. And that's what Krishna is saying. Just surrender unto me and you will easily overcome it. And now Krishna starts explaining how there are certain people who will never surrender to Krishna. Krishna said now that uh, surrender unto me. But then he says that no, there are four kinds of people who will never surrender. And what are those four people? Who are grossly foolish. Foolish doesn't mean their IQ is low, their उनके marks कम आए थे exam में, ऐसा नहीं है. Grossly foolish as in they are so materialistic, they are not ready to think anything spiritual in their lives. Okay. Despite seeing that because of the lack of spiritual inputs in life, there is some problem somewhere, they they're not even able to figure out that gap in one's life. That ultimately it is because of the lack of spirituality I'm struggling in life. That gap is also not understood. Okay. So those kind of people. Then the second category is lowest among mankind, which means Naradama. Uh, um, Naradama means those who are engaged in very, very bad activities. Okay. Huh? With intent. Okay. It's not that they are unintentionally or misguided, or they're intentionally into very, very, very bad activities. So they don't have any goodness left in them. Nothing. So they live by troubling others. They live uh, by killing, by other living entities, by harming others. So these are the lowest among mankind. Third is whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. So these are the knowledgeable, so-called knowledgeable people who think they are very knowledgeable, but actually they don't know anything about God. They can sometimes write a confused book of 1600 pages also about God, but they don't understand what is God, and they can't make anyone understand. Okay. So these are also the type of people who will say that no, yes, we are finding the source of creation. It will take 10,000 more years, but we are very close to it and all these things. So proud of one's knowledge. Okay. So let's say, I mean, if scientist or if somebody who's very, very, very PhD kind of person, if he doesn't know how to make malai paneer, he doesn't know it. It's not that he knows everything. He may be knowing something of a subject, but he can't know everything of everything. So sometimes knowledge of God also one takes in a very challenging spirit, and especially those who are very knowledgeable, they think that no, it's a अरे हमने तो इतना कुछ समझ लिया, हम तो इतने बड़े बड़े गुरु बन गए, हम क्या किसी से समझेंगे कि भगवान क्या है. So the such kind of people also don't surrender. And fourth is they take the atheistic nature. Atheistic nature means they are actually, it's not that they don't believe in God, they are strongly against the existence of God. I mean, they will always come in a forum and speak specially against God, that God doesn't exist. कुछ भी और हो जाए, कोई और है नहीं है, भगवान नहीं है बस. Okay. So such are the four kinds of people. They have closed the doors themselves. But there are four kinds of people who will always surrender at some point of time or the other. The first kind is distressed. Distress means they feel helpless actually. When we in our life sometimes we feel helpless. कि क्या करूँ मैं? No, I don't have any this thing. So you feel distressed. So then it is no one will go to approach to God and seek help from God, that please help me, I'm in such a distressful situation, such and such person is not keeping well, my relative or this whatever, or I am having some problem. So when one goes approaches Lord in that helpless way, obviously Lord helps, and in a very faithful way, in a very helpless mood. When one approaches Lord, Lord always helps. So then one develops that faith that Bhagwan hai, and then one goes ahead. The second is desire of wealth. Okay, it's very surprising. Okay, that one desires wealth, but he he understands that no, I am desiring wealth, and it can only be given by higher powers. It can only be come by Lord. Okay, so they also engage in the worship of Lord because they want wealth. The third category is inquisitive. Those who want to understand what is that missing link, what is happening, why this world is suffering, why there are so many suffering, why the good people suffer, why bad people enjoy, why this happens, why that inquisitive. And the fourth category is one who is searching for knowledge. These are the four kinds of people who will surrender to. Okay. So in this way, Krishna keeps on explaining that how this material energy is my separated energy, is constituted by these eight elements, and then we have spiritual energy, which is superior energy to material energy, and living entities are also part of the spiritual energy. But if they exploit the resources of material nature, they will be subjected to the laws of material nature, just like a law of central jail is applicable to a citizen. Though citizen is higher, uh, should not be in that jail, but because of his tendency to commit crime, he lands up in a jail like that. And then eventually we discussed about how by surrendering to God as a servant, it is very easy to overcome the clutches of material nature. Because of our previous activities, we may be bound right now, but then eventually we can surrender to God. And then four kinds of people who surrender and four kinds of people who don't surrender. So I think we'll stop here. The other verses are more, we can sort of look at it, but essentially this was chapter 7. So if there are any questions in the chat, I'm not able to see the Facebook chat. So I'm not seeing any questions. So we will meet then next week. We discussed today chapter 7th. We will start with chapter 8, Bhagavad Gita. And we hope to then move further about the devotional service of Lord, precisely what it is, what it actually means to surrender, how we can actually importance of. Now we will talk more spiritual topics, core spiritual topics, and then we'll come back where we started, how to fight in this world. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.